Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye fans, to Punting is Winning, the All Iowa podcast. It is bowl day. We waited an extra day to record just so we could get this in.
This is pretty much an instant reaction right now.
Yeah.
Because the game was over literally 7 minutes ago.
Yep.
We thought we'd get on here and kind of get our gut reaction feelings and the way things transpired in the game. And boy, yeah.
Well,
what do you say? I don't know what to say.
Let's take care of the question last week.
Okay.
I don't remember what the question. Oh, we asked you to give us an idea of what you thought the prediction of this game was, and either I imagine the holidays had a lot to do with this. Nobody responded to that. I actually was going to go on record if we'd recorded last night and said Iowa was going to win this one 31-21.
I had Missouri 27-24.
How ironic. But yeah, nobody answered. I'm assuming it's probably just because of the holidays. People just kind of take a little bit of a break from social media, from podcasts, all that stuff. Maybe we could have taken a break, but the season doesn't break for anything. We don't break for anything either. So we keep going. But so yeah, let's roll right into this bowl game that we just watched. Iowa, Missouri. Missouri takes the win 27-24 in the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl in Nashville. I don't know what more you can say. I think the game hinged on two plays in my book. One was in my opinion, a very egregiously bad roughing or unsportsmanlike conduct or personal foul, whatever you want to call it, on the sidelines. That was about the weakest one I've seen in years. That would have gotten them off the field. That would have kept them out of field goal range. They would have not had, that we don't know what would have transpired at that point. And I think the second one was the drop pass by Gill on the 3rd and 2 when he had the first down and just didn't look it in, and could have kept the chains moving. That would have kept the ball out of their hands for, that potential game-winning 56-yard field goal, which I honestly didn't even think they were going to try. But they did.
Yeah, this kid's
that's what the game
been money all year. I mean, he's been money all year. He just, 56 was nothing for him. Did you see the way he hit that first one?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they would have tried it from 58, to be honest. And he probably would have got it from 58.
The other thing I also noticed, and I know I pointed it out to you, it seemed like, and I noticed this probably in a lot more games than most people do, it just seemed like the spotting of the ball was very suspect at times, because I swear in that last punt, when they shanked that punt, I swear that ball was spotted at the 44, but yet we had to get to the opposing 45. So we basically had to go 11 yards to get a first down instead of 10. I don't know how that wasn't a first down on that catch over the middle that we had to end up, getting that weak 4th and 2 inches. That, I don't know. I don't know what you do there. I mean, I think they hurried themselves way too much and should have gotten lined up. And, you can read the defense a little bit more and you can see what gaps they're coming into and try to make your way into a different spot. Your offensive line has a better shot of plowing down. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. It's the end of the game. Nothing we can do about it at that point anyway. We shouldn't have been put in that position. We should have played and scored more than 3 points in the second half. And, and to me, the 3 points, it wasn't as if we weren't moving the ball. We were moving the ball pretty decently. I mean, I wouldn't say we were manhandling them, but we were running the ball consistently. And it seemed like when we started to run the ball consistently, he decided, well, let's go back to the pass. I'm like, you're needing 2 yards and you're passing on 2nd down and 3rd down. Why are you doing this? I don't know. It just seemed like there was they outfunked themselves maybe. Oh, well, they're going to expect the run, so I'm going to go to the pass. And, hey, until they can stop you, keep doing it. You've done it all year long.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I want to basically say a little bit about that penalty on the sidelines that extended Missouri's drive. I think they had a 3rd and 18 and
3rd and 20.
With 3rd and 20. Okay, 3rd and 20. And but you have to read what's been going on all game. These referees from the ACC were looking for a targeting call all morning. All day, all afternoon. Every time you turn around, they were trying to get a targeting call. Well, neither one of the 2 targeting calls that they actually called were targeting. So you had to kind of understand where these guys were coming from right from the start. You have to know what your referees are up to. They're itchy. They want to throw a flag on anything they can figure out a way to throw a flag on. It's like they are under the assumption that they are going to control the game, not the players and not the coaches. It's got to run through them. So when you have a crew like that, you have to be careful of what you're doing. Anything that's even remotely close, you have to wonder if you're going to get a call against you. And they did. A couple of them.
I don't think they were going to call that until the coaches on the Missouri sideline started barking about it.
Well,
and to me, I go back to the other one that was very suspect in my book. So the punt return, or was it maybe the kick return? I think it was the punt return, but Legion went out at the 34-yard line, gets a forearm shiver to the head, which should have been a targeting there. They were hesitant to call the late hit there at first. Should have been a targeting there, but still, the fact that he was knocked out around the 34-yard line, and they marked him at the 30, and then moved him up to the 45. I'm like, shouldn't that ball have been about the 49-yard line on that? That just, I don't know. There was just so many things in there that I was like, this isn't adding up. These guys are just not doing their job right. They're just, you get knocked down at the 35 and they mark you at the 37, or, it just didn't. And I know I'm not using this as an excuse to blame the officials for losing a game. It's just, you got to be better than that.
Yeah. You remember your first day of work, right?
Yeah. I mean, I even texted you that time. I said, the kid caught the fair catch on the punt at the 21-yard line. What do you want to bet they marked it at the 22? And by God, they marked it at the 22.
Yeah.
I mean, he was stepping with his back foot on the 20 and his front foot was on the 21. There's no way he was at the 22-yard. Again, 1 yard, it shouldn't matter, but, it's a game of inches in football. You never know. So if you're going to do it, just, I don't know, you got to be better than that.
I was disappointed with a couple of decisions that were made. I don't know if it was in the 3rd or 4th quarter when Iowa had a 4th and 2 in like at the 40 or 42-yard line of Missouri. We decided to punt. I think you should have went for that. And the reason I say that is because it's a bowl game.
Yeah. I think that was in the first half, though, actually.
Could have been in the first half. One of those times. I was yelling, go for it. You got momentum. You're moving the ball. Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. Just do it. And it's like, no, we can't. We're just doing too well. We got to stop and give the other team the opportunity to run the ball down the field, and they did. And they hadn't been stopped all day. I think Iowa had 2 times when they had forced them to punt. Did Missouri only punt twice? I can't remember him punting more than twice.
Yeah.
If they did, I'm sorry, like but I thought it was twice. So, we talked about this just before he came on. Here's the situation as I see it. When you've got a quarterback, and I realize that Iowa started out with McNamara to begin the season, and he ran for a majority of like the first 4 or 6 games, whatever it was. But you could tell that this Cook kid from Missouri had been in control and had been throwing the ball as part of his quarterback duties and routines since day one. Iowa is a run-first offense, obviously. Well, when you take your number 1 running back out of the picture to go to the pros, you've got 2 guys. They're decent. They're going to be good. They're just young, and they haven't had a lot of experience like Caleb has had. You're going to need to start focusing your off times when you're between games, like when your last game of the season and your bowl game. You need to focus on knowing that Caleb Johnson's not there to run the ball. You need to start figuring out how you can open up that passing offense. And they need to start making routes and schemes to go with the skill set of who they've got behind the center. And if they cannot do that, then they are not coaching correctly. You have to, instead of saying, this is the way we're going to do it, and then hitting your head against a brick wall continuously, you have to adapt your schemes for the personnel that you have, because you're not going to have everybody from day one to the last day of the bowl game. You're going to have opt-outs. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have kids that just don't want to play anymore and quit. That's what happens. So instead of saying, we're just going to do this regardless of who's in there, next man up mentality, hey, that's fine. That works part of the time, and part of the time it doesn't. You have to start adapting to the situations. And they don't. Iowa is not adapted to the situations. They came out early today and they were throwing the ball. And that big, nice pass to Addison Stringer to start the game off, I'm like, oh, wow, they did listen to us. They are throwing the ball. Wow, this is great. I love it. Second half, none of that. Yeah. Couldn't throw the ball to save their life.
Well, and you think about the fact that you just had a recruit turn you down for the opposing team that you're playing because your offense does not showcase his talents. Well, maybe that's the reason why people won't come there, is because your offense is not going to showcase their talents. So you've got to do something to show them, hey, we will adapt, or we will do what we need to do to make you successful. And they don't do that.
With that mindset, then we should get the highest rated running back in all of the United States to come to Iowa, because he's going to get the ball 30 times a game. We can't get that guy either. Well, I mean, Caleb Johnson did really well, but he didn't do it till his last year.
The problem with those type of situations is we can't afford them. We can't pony up the money like the Blue Bloods can. And
maybe we can, and we just don't.
And that's, I don't know.
Maybe it's the situation where our coach, who has resisted the NIL and has resisted paying these players from day one, and has admitted as much, never talks about NIL, never does anything towards NIL, doesn't promote it at any point. And then he comes in, and you got a kid that comes in and says, Coach, how's everything at Iowa? We're going to take a tour. We're going to show you all the facilities. We're going to meet all the coaches. And then the kid comes in and sits down with Coach, and Coach says to the coach, he says, okay, let's talk money. Coach goes, don't you just want to be a Hawkeye? And he says, well, and I mean, Missouri right here is offering me $1,500,000 to come and play for them. Do you at least want to offer something? No, go ahead. You go to Missouri. I'm not paying you $1.5 million.
But I don't think that was the issue. This, according to what I read, that wasn't the issue. The money wasn't the issue with Purdue. It was style of offense and showcasing his talents. And
that's probably huge. That's probably the case. But there's been kids where that Kirk's probably thought in his head, doesn't fit our style. We're not going to try him. We're not even going to give him an opportunity to get money from us. We're not going to bring Brad Heinrichs in and say, okay, what's it going to take? But there might have been kids in there that, and here's how it should go. Absolutely 100%. Get a kid in here. The kid wants to come to Iowa, and he says, yeah, Coach, I'm interested. I want to do this. Okay. They sit him in a conference room. Coach sits there and tells him all about how great things are. And the kid's he's lathered up, ready to go. He wants to come to Iowa. He's ready to run through a brick wall for you. Okay, Coach, get up and walk out the door. Shut it behind you. Then in 3 minutes, that door opens up. Brad Heinrichs or somebody from the NIL walks in and says, Coach likes you. What's it going to take? Coach Ferentz should not know. Honestly, he shouldn't know where any of these kids are getting paid. Shouldn't have a clue. Should not be discussed with him.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. I think in his case, I'm old school in the same sense of that, as I think the whole, what's it going to take to get here is crap. I don't like that. And I know it's the day and age that we're in, and there's nothing you can do about it. You got to adapt or die. But I'm old school too. I don't like that system. I don't like I read all these guys, they negotiated a new deal to stay at South Carolina. Negotiated a new deal? Isn't his scholarship his deal? That's I don't like it. It is the face of what college football is now. I don't have to like it. I'm not part of the program, so I don't have to, you know, interject myself into that situation. But I'm going on record saying I don't like it. I think it's devaluing the sport. It's devaluing something that I love because it's basically turned into free agency. Whoever can pony up the most money gets the best recruits.
I was just going to say, this is free agency in the Wild West right now.
Yeah.
But I don't like it either. I think it's killing the sport. I think it's killing the fandoms. People are like, oh, I want to get behind this kid. I want to watch him play all 4 years, depending on how good he is. He might jump to the NFL. But I want to get behind him. Well, oh, great. He plays one season and says, I don't like it here and I'm leaving. I got Syracuse or somebody else or Florida State offering me more money to come there than you guys can ever offer. So I'm leaving.
And it doesn't even have to be that they don't like it. It doesn't even have to be that they don't like it there. It's, you know, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Guys are going, okay, I go to Iowa and I get 500,000. Well, then I have a really decent year. And now Penn State wants me for 1.2 million. Iowa can't offer that. So I'm going to go there. Well, I do really good at Penn State. Now Ohio State wants me for 3 million. I'm going to go there for my final year. It's just whoever wants, you know, it's like the minor leagues of football. You build up players and then the rich go out and buy them off.
Right.
And to me, that is no different than what goes on in Major League Baseball. And I don't like it there. Even though in some cases my team benefits from it because our owner is extremely rich, but I still don't like it. I don't think these guys, there's not a person, not a player in any sport on this earth that's worth $765 million. So there's not a player in college that's worth $1 million in my book. You're already getting a free education. You're getting room and board. You're getting meals. You're getting the best training programs that there are. You're getting national exposure to be able to make those millions in the NFL. That should be enough. But again, I get it. They had to change the rules because the SEC was paying players under the table, and this way it just makes it legal for them.
Yeah, you're 100% correct on that. And I feel like it is also killing the sport. And I don't know what the answer is. I think that when we get this where the schools are now going to pay like a salary to these kids, I don't know. I don't understand. One of the things about Iowa that bothers me is that you've got a guy that runs the Swarm, Brad Heinrich's his name, and he's trying his hardest to get out there and to promote the Swarm to get as much money as he can so that he can play the game, you know, with these kids like everybody else is. And, you know, he has meetings, and I don't know, this is all speculation. He has meetings with the Iowa administration, Beth Getz and maybe even Kirk. And he says all the right things. He gives them the pitch. He's like a salesman trying to win an account. And he goes in and he says all the right things, and he tells them that this is great, and all I need is your support. And they're like, absolutely, you're going to get my support. The second that guy leaves the door, he goes like, we're going to keep this in-house. We're not going to include him. And I think that's what's happening, is I think they're all about telling him that everything's great and we're going to work with you and we're going to do everything that's required to try to get as much NIL money as we can. And then they're walking out the door and turning their back on him and saying all the right things, but not doing anything, not doing a thing. They're not promoting it. They're not attempting to help promote it. They're just telling them, guy, yeah, well, we'll do it. We'll do it. And then turn your back and walk away.
Yep. Whatever gets you out of the office.
Yeah.
I do want to preface one thing that I did say. I'm not calling out the SEC on an individual basis here. It's every conference. It's not just the SEC, but I mean, that's just always the running gag for the last several years is the SEC paying the money. McDonald's
the old
bags under the
McDonald's
table.
bags. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I'm sure Ohio State's doing it. I'm sure Michigan's doing it. I'm sure there's
State.
Yeah, USC. I mean,
if you're not doing it, you're not trying to stay.
If you're not trying to cheat, what's wrong with you? You know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know what to do. And you know, I tend to think sometimes it's also situations where you've been burned in the past. You know, you've given money to players that didn't pan out, and now you've got to be even more selective because your collective isn't as big as others. And now you're like, okay, well, you know, Cade McNamara didn't work out for us. I don't want to spend money on, you know, that much money on somebody and then have it be a bust again. Because my fans are going to be less likely to donate if that keeps happening, or the Caden Proctor situation.
Just going to say that.
The fans need to also stop and think about the fact that a lot of that swarm money keeps some guys here an extra year. Right. It also brings in guys like Nick Jackson. There's a lot of success stories too.
Yeah, there's been some good out of it, but those things don't get highlighted because those things aren't in the limelight. Everybody wants to see, we spent this much money and this guy didn't do anything for us. That's what people focus on. That's just that's the nature of the business. They don't look at the kids and say, oh yeah, that kid worked out great. That was well worth the money.
Yeah. And the other thing that I see a lot of is, I won't donate to the Swarm until Kirk Ferentz is gone. So you're ready to basically cut the head off the snake because you don't like the head coach, knowing that if you don't donate until after he's gone, the program is so far behind at that point that you're going to start complaining about I'm not going to donate until they turn it around. Well, they're not going to turn it around if you hamstring them. It's a double-edged sword. I get why people don't want to do it because they don't like Ferentz or whatever. But you know what? That's not the only sport that money goes to.
I think, too, that the NIL, I think there'd be a lot more donations to the NIL if Kirk Ferentz would actually get behind it and say, yes, absolutely, we need more NIL. In fact, I'm going to take a part of my salary and I'm going to donate it back to the NIL because I'm so interested in it. I'm so worried about this program getting quality players. And this is the world we're living in right now until it changes. I want to donate a couple $100,000 back to the NIL because that's going to help me in the long run.
Yeah.
But you don't see that. He doesn't talk about the NIL. Beth Getz doesn't talk about the NIL. So unless you've got the heads of the departments, the head of the football team, the head of the athletic department out there promoting it and asking people, please donate to the Swarm NIL. It's only going to help us. Until you get those people doing that, people are going to be reluctant to spend money, to send their money in blindly and hope that whatever they spend the money on is done wisely. You have to have people behind it at the top. If they're not behind it, nobody cares.
Well, and I think if you look at it too, the other thing that I've noticed is the NIL success stories have been on the defensive side. Mm-hmm. We're bringing in better defensive players through the NIL than we are offensive players, simply because we can't sell the offense to good players. So
100%.
That goes back to what we talked about last week. Open it up, go out there. It's a bowl game. It's an exhibition. It's basically an exhibition game. I get that you want to win it, and it means something to everybody. It means something to me when we lose and when we win. But if you treat it like an exhibition game where you work on things that you need to work on and you see what it's like against a live defense, you've had a month to run a lot of that stuff, to open some of those parts of the playbook up. You throw wrinkles at somebody that they aren't expecting because they don't know what's coming. They have no idea. And you do the perfect time to do it is against a team that doesn't play you on a consistent basis. So now you've got the opportunity because, if you run this out there against, let's say, an Iowa State or a Big Ten opponent that you play every single year, and we've seen this formation before. We have a pretty good idea what's coming here. These guys would be like, I have no clue what's going on here. Okay, it's going to be more successful. Now you've got that on tape to show, oh, hey, look, we do open it up. We do have some dynamic plays. Now, if we just had a little bit more speed, like we need you, who's got that speed, to put us over the top there. We want to do this. We're able to do this, but we just don't quite have the speed there. We don't have the skill set in that spot that you can bring to us. That's a selling point. And
Absolutely.
That's probably a bigger selling point to some of these guys than the NIL is. Yes, some of these guys is a big thing, especially the big time, these 4 and 5 star portal recruits that are coming in. NIL is all they're looking for.
Yeah.
It's the 3-star guys. It's the other guys that are coming up from the Division 1 AA. Sorry,
FCS.
I know it's Division 1 FCS, but it's 1 AA to me because it's easier to remember. Or the Division 2 level that want to prove that they're capable of playing at this level. They're less about the NIL, more about, hey, can you scheme to get me the ball and let me showcase some stuff? Those are the guys that you're going to be able to get. And if you can find those diamonds in a rough, you're not going to get the 4 and 5 stars. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. The Bo Prabula thing, yeah, you're always going to be bridesmaid in that situation. Your offense isn't tailor-made to what he wants to do. And you haven't shown that that's what it's going to do. So you're not going to get him. Your best bet is to go out and get a guy like Gronowski from South Dakota State if he goes in the portal, who wants to prove that he can play at the Division I level, highest level of football. Or you go grab somebody that's been a prolific passer at Illinois State.
Some Power Five.
Someplace, yeah, or some Group of 5 guy that wants to move up to a Power 4 conference,
Right.
I really was really intrigued about the kid from North Texas. And I mean, obviously he's gone right away, but I was like, that's a kid that can play ball. And let's see what he can do at a high Division I level instead of at an FCS or a Group of 5 level.
Right.
But that's what they got to start focusing on. And I think Iowa does do that to an extent. That's why you don't see them in on a lot of these high profile names, because they're just not going to come. Those guys are the ones that want the high NIL value. And Iowa's just not going to do that just based on past history. They're not going to just pump out $1.5 million for a guy. Now, granted, it sounds like they were willing to do that for the Penn State transfer, but I think that's few and far between. Unless the guy is an absolute home run, he's the pinnacle and the cherry on top of the cake that puts you over the top. Yeah, he's going to require $2 million. Okay, then they probably do something like that. But unless that's the case, and you absolutely know it's going to be a home run, I don't think Iowa does it. And I can't say that I disagree in some places, because you're setting yourself up for the disappointment of coming in second when you try to swing for the fences. But I get it. You got to swing for the fences in some cases. And they do.
Let's use this Bo Perbula thing as an example. Okay. He came down to Iowa and Missouri. Today ought to have shown you exactly why he chose Missouri.
Yeah.
Missouri, today was a prime example. Why would, if you're going to offer $1.5 million, each school is going to offer $1.5 million. And let's say Iowa did offer him $1.5 million, and he just said, no, I think I like Missouri's scheme better. Today's the example of why.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you come to Iowa when you had Missouri right there, that kid throwing the ball around the yard all day long? And then you had Iowa. Did we get 100 yards passing today?
137.
137. And that guy threw, what, nearly 300?
But was 14 of 18 for 137 yards. It's not like he was, 10 of 30 for 137 yards. 14 of 18's, but you only throw the ball 18 times.
Yeah. There you go, Bo Perbula. Why do you want to come to Missouri as opposed to Iowa? Because Iowa, at max, throws the ball 18 times a game, and Missouri will throw it over 30.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't worry about throwing it over 30. That's the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody that says differently is living in a dream world.
There's an example right there. You can't dispute it.
And I will, a lot of people will say this is the fallout effects of Brian Ferentz. Yeah, it probably is.
To some degree.
You probably got to have at least 2 years of Tim Lester's offense before these offensive skill players can look at it and say, okay, I see what you're trying to do, and I see that you're getting better at it. I could see myself being a part of that offense, putting you over the top. But until you've got something to really show them of saying, hey, we're nothing different than what we are last year right now. I mean, we're a little more dynamic, but they're going to look at it and say, yeah, your historic averages suck. Your passing offense was 130th out of 132. The only two teams that finished lower were service academies. Sorry, I'm not going to come to your school and be quarterback there to hand the ball off all the time.
Tim Lester, hey, if you're listening, and I know you don't, but if you are listening, the Iowa passing game has got to improve. And it has got to improve quickly between now and the first game next year. The first game of the season. It has got to improve. You have got to sit down and make schemes, make plays, do whatever you got to do. Work with these kids on a daily basis to make that passing offense better. If you don't, you're just going to fall farther and farther and farther behind on people who don't want to come to Iowa because you have no passing offense. That's how it is.
And we're not saying that Iowa needs to go out there and be a 80% pass, 20% run. But 55-45, that's still being pretty balanced. If you throw the ball 25 times a game and you get 18 of 25 for 250 yards and you run the ball 32 times and you rush for 170 yards, you're at 420 yards right there. I take that. That's a pretty good offense. That's ball control. But I think the problem is Iowa wants to. They don't. They're doing the exact opposite of what they want the team to do, or they're doing exactly what they want the other team to do when they're on defense. They want you to, as a defense, we want you to try to get chunk plays because that's where our defense is best. Look at the teams that have absolutely shredded Iowa in the passing game. The Purdue's, who do the short over the middle passes, who
Missouri.
use the Missouri guys that will swing the ball out to the flat and use that as an extended run. It's not the teams that go, well, I'm going to drop back and throw passes for 25 plus yards every time. No, those are the teams that Iowa thrives on and just eats up when it comes to turnovers.
No, that's how the defense is set up.
Yeah, when you go short passes over the middle, short passes to the outside, Iowa can't defend it in their zone defense. It's harder for them to defend. I shouldn't say they can't. And that's the other thing that kind of bugged me today was when all these receivers for them were going out with injuries, we didn't go to any man-to-man defense at all when we should have been able to match up with freshman wide receivers. And I get the philosophy is, well, you got a quarterback that runs, and if you're running man-to-man, you got your back to the ball. Okay, so run man-to-man on your outsides and put a spy over the middle like a Jay Higgins or a Nick Jackson. That's their job, is to make sure that guy doesn't run.
Missouri just kept throwing the ball, too. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, they know who they are. And I guess Iowa should know who they are, too. I mean, they're running team first, number one. But that's going to have to start being a more of an, like you said, a 50-50, 55-45. We need to get a more, because we relied too much this year on running. We relied too much on Caleb Johnson. And, it's good to ride who the hot hand is, but I think there was times when it went a little too far and we rode him even though he wasn't getting it done. UCLA, Michigan State, Ohio State. I mean, he did all right against Iowa State. They just messed it up at the end. The defense couldn't hold anybody out, but
the offense couldn't score when they were inside the 5 twice.
That doesn't help.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. I just know that you need to start implementing this Kyle Shanahan offense that everybody talks about. And here's one of the things that bothers me is everything about what Kirk says in his press conferences is that he's not grasped the offense yet. He's not grasped the offense yet. He's still learning the offense. How difficult is this offense? Is it written in Chinese? What's going on?
How is that the offense so much more difficult than like Ohio State's, where a freshman quarterback can walk in and be successful?
There you go.
How many times have we seen Alabama or Ohio State or Michigan or somebody run out a freshman quarterback that just, I mean, they're getting 5-star quarterbacks that we're not getting. But even a 3-star quarterback can grasp the offense and be able to go out and limit the mistakes and move the ball.
I think they grasp the offense just fine. I think it's just Kirk Ferentz's way of saying, I don't think he's ready, or I want to put this guy in, play him first.
Well, I want to be risk adverse, and this is not risk adverse in my book.
Yeah.
He's got to have to change.
I'm not saying, hey, you know what? I'd say you got to let Tim Lester be Tim Lester and let him be the offensive coordinator. There's no more of this hamstringing him and saying you can't do this or you can't do that. Coach, be on the sidelines and you manage the team on the sidelines. Let your defensive coordinator and your offensive coordinator run the game, and your special teams coach. You should be there to do all of the management things. You're the CEO. You're not out there running the floor in a factory situation. You're sitting up in your office making sure that all of the pieces of the puzzle all fit together.
Mm-hmm. And that's your subordinates.
You're not worrying about putting the piece in. You're just making sure that the pieces are getting put in.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
but he can't. I don't think he's doing that. I think he's saying to Tim Lester through his headset, that's not a good play. I don't want to run that. Or,
we're up 10. Let's start to try to chew the clock now. Let's go away from what we've been doing.
they're going through their pregame weeks in advance of these bowl games and saying, here's the plays I think that will work. I think we should stay with these. Or maybe Tim Lester's saying, hey, I think we need to open it up. And coach is saying, I don't think we've got the mentality of the players, because I don't think you trust the players, some of it, to run these plays. I don't think they know how to run these plays. So let's don't run these. Let's run these plays. And it's the same crap we run that's simple every game. Let's don't open anything up. Let's don't run reverses. Let's don't run flea flickers. Let's don't do any of those things. Let's don't open up the offense. Let's leave it as mundane and simple as we can, because I don't want to overpower these kids' minds. That's why he tells them, I don't think we're ready to play that or run that yet. I don't think this kid's got all of the grasp of the offense yet.
If you've had it since the spring, and that's 10 months. I mean, granted, these guys have games that they're playing, they're going over the game plan, but you don't think those guys are running through those things, at least mentally, in some of those plays anyway? They should know where they're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
Now, granted, if you've got a 400-page playbook and you're digging back on page 397 for something that you've never run, well, okay, then I get, we're probably not ready to run, this double reverse flea flicker or whatever, because we haven't run it before. We haven't even run it really in practice much. Okay, but a simple reverse. We didn't see a single jet sweep today, did we?
Boy, I don't remember
the
one if we
pass, the one pass to Terrell Washington for the touchdown was a jet sweep, but it went down as a passing touchdown.
Yep.
So
because it was flipped forward.
Yeah, but I mean, outside of that, we didn't run a jet sweep. We didn't try to use anything that was going against the tendencies of flowing towards the ball, like running something misdirection or backside or any of that stuff.
I don't know why we don't do that. Do we not have players that are quick enough to run that? Like if Caden Weegan was to run that, I mean, that kid went 103 yards on a kickoff return for a touchdown. He's got speed, he's got quickness, and he can cut and make the right moves and make the right decisions. But yet we won't run him on something like that, or we won't do wide receiver screens to get him the ball where he can get out in the open field. We're not doing any of those things.
The staples that we did in 2002 that made us such a difficult offense to stop, with a quarterback that could run the ball, was a running threat. You could bring back the shades of 2002. I'm not saying Brendan Sullivan's Brad Banks reincarnated. No, but not by any means, because Brad Banks could have touch and he could throw the ball really well. I don't think that Sullivan's got the touch like Banks had, but he does offer that element of the run. So now you're able to, they can't just key on just the running back. Now they got to key on the quarterback, but you see nothing from that 2002 offense being ran in 2024. Like the tunnel screens, the wide receiver screens in the middle screens, any of that stuff.
When was the last time you saw
a tight end?
When was the last time you saw a draw? Have you seen a draw from Iowa since like 2002, 4? I mean, was it the last time we saw a draw was Sean Green?
Yeah. When was the last time we hit a seam pattern over the middle? Not very often.
Stray Straw still playing then?
I don't. And that's a play that's typically open for Iowa all the time. I mean, you could with the threat of a running quarterback, you could do a play action in the middle. You run the quarterback like he's going to run off tackle, and all he has to do is pop up and drop it right over the top to a tight end, and he's wide open. I guarantee that tight end's going to be wide open. If he stock blocks off the start, and that linebacker who's covering him or that safety who's covering him, now granted, it may not go for a touchdown. It may be 10 to 12 yard gain, or that safety may read it. Okay, if the safety reads it, then you tuck the ball and you just run. But if the safety doesn't read it, you got free. That's free money. But you don't use any of that. You don't utilize any of that. And that's what's frustrating, is you don't play to the strengths of what you've got on the field sometimes. And sometimes you overplay to the strengths of what's on the field.
Yeah, I talked about that earlier.
I've got, like back in 2008, I had Sean Green. I'm just going to run him on fourth and short because it's Sean Green. Well, everybody knows that Sean Green's going to get the ball on fourth and short, so they stack the line and stop him a yard short. Okay, well, now I just overthought myself and overplayed to my strengths instead of going against the grain of something that they aren't expecting. I go back to that game against Missouri in 2010. Iowa had it, 4th down and short. All they had to do was get the 1st down, and basically the game was over, and everybody stacked the middle because it was like 4th and 6 inches, 4th and a yard maybe. And what did they do? They ran a play action waggle that had the tight end wide open who gets cut down at the 1 foot line. Take a knee, you game over. What happened to that?
You don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
No,
Why not use that
creative
pop pass?
Those creative plays, those creative thoughts, those creative designed plays at creative times don't exist.
It's almost like
They've stopped existing.
They're too gimmicky. We don't do that. We want to play real football. That's a gimmicky play. Let's just play real football.
I don't get it.
Smash it down your throat.
I don't get it.
It doesn't always work. So, but yeah, I think we've beat this horse to death, honestly. Disappointment in the loss. Happy for the fact that the game was closer than probably a lot of people thought it was going to be. I'm sure a lot of people thought this was going to be Missouri cakewalk. Missouri takes the lead with 4 minutes left to go in the game for the first time. I
thought Iowa would actually win it, believe it or not.
I did too, but I looked back and thought, Missouri's best win was against a very substandard Boston College team. Yeah, I don't think that was a reason for them to be in this game, but our defense didn't necessarily light up the world today either. Didn't play very well.
Changing the subject, but still staying on football, what do you think of the Ohio State-Oregon game rematch?
I said it last week. I think Ohio State's going to win.
I said it. I'll say it. That I agree with you. I think Ohio State's going to win this one. However, what I want to complain about is the fact that they're meeting in this game.
Yeah.
There was never a time that I think deserved basically to redo the seeding than there is right now. I don't think Ohio State and Oregon should be playing this early. I think this is definitely a semifinal or finals game.
To me, I think they're the two best teams.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I think with Georgia's quarterback getting hurt and going out and not being available and now opting to the NFL, that took Georgia, to me, out of the picture as far as a contender for the national championship. I think there's other teams that are better. I think Texas is better. We'll see if even Notre Dame might even be a little bit better. I don't know. It's hard to say because the kid that replaced the quarterback did get to play the last couple games and actually, or maybe the last game or part of the last game.
Like the last quarter of the last game.
Isn't bad. And he's had 3-4 weeks to get him ready. So I'm sure he's a quality kid anyway. He's probably a 5-star. He might be just kind of the heir apparent, and he may come in and just set the world on fire, and Georgia may win this whole thing because of him. But he also might come in and look like he's a scared rabbit and not perform.
Look like a guy that hasn't been out on the field much.
Yeah, look like an Iowa quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's a travesty that I think that what should probably have been the national championship game or potentially a championship game is Oregon or Ohio State. It happens in the second round. I don't like that, but nothing we can do.
We talked about this. I said, I like the teams. I don't like the seeding. And, I said that last week or the week before. This is exactly why. Right here. You got the two best teams and what I would think is the two best teams playing in this round, and that's not fair. I don't think that's right. But it is what it is. We have to agree with it. We don't have to agree with it, but we have to live with it. Anyway.
It is what it is. So let's shift gears. Let's hit the hardwood real quick. Only game we had was the women's game. We have the men's game here in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can wrap this up and get out there and watch that as well. But what did you think? The women played yesterday, Big Ten matchup against Purdue at home. Not a very good Purdue team.
No, not a good Purdue team. Iowa win 84-63. Iowa now improves to 12-2 on the season and 1-1 in the conference. I thought there was kind of an odd stat line. Did you see the stat line?
Yeah, only one person in double figures.
Only one in double figures, and there were like 5 players with 9 points.
9. Yep, that's spreading it out.
So that's odd that you don't see that happen very often. What was nice to see is that Ava Hayden had 8 rebounds. She led the team with rebounds. And what I also like to see is at one point, towards the end of the second quarter or middle of the second quarter, Iowa was running with 4 freshmen.
4 freshmen and
junior.
Well, Taylor McCabe Jr.
Yes.
Yeah. And they were building a lead.
Yes, they were absolutely doing everything that was required of them to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that's going to hold this Iowa team back is the thing we've talked about is the lack of ball security and trying to make a play that's not really there instead of doing, like there was a couple times I know there was some dribbling around, around the baseline and then some passes out to the wings, and then the wings would dribble in, do some dribble drives, and then try to pass, and they end up turning the ball over. And I was like, one of you's got to step up and actually take a shot, because there was 3 times in that sequence, and I don't know if you know the sequence I'm talking about. I think it was late in the first half. One of you's got to take a step up and take that shot, because the more you dribble around, the more likely you're going to turn it over. Yeah. And it seemed like they were trying to be too unselfish about it, which, yay, some people try to be unselfish, which can be a detriment at times. Sometimes you just got to take the shot when it's there. I mean, there was 2 or 3 times where the shot was there and you're like, yeah, just take it, and then eventually it ended up turning the ball over. And that's the problem, is the turnover started to happen in succession. And that's what let Purdue crawl back into a game that they should never have been in the first place. Now, granted, Iowa did pull, or, did their own rendition of, hey, we'll turn you over and go on a run of our own, 13-0 run. But it's just the fact that 18-point lead got dropped down to 6.
Yeah.
So like, that shouldn't happen again. You can't do that against a good team. I mean,
no,
nothing against Purdue, because they've got some decent players, but they're not a high caliber team like a Maryland or an Indiana or something like
UCLA.
That. Yeah. So you're not gonna be able to do that there.
One of the things I've noticed about Iowa in the last, and it's probably happened since before the Tennessee game, that Iowa plays pretty well the first half, but that third quarter, I'll bet you that Iowa has, over the course of this season, if they haven't been outscored in the third quarter, they are not, I bet it's pretty close to even.
Yeah.
Because that third quarter against UNI was not good. The third quarter against Purdue was not good. And I want to say the third quarter against Iowa State was not great.
I don't remember.
I think Iowa asserts itself more in the fourth quarter is when they actually pull the game away, when they, like at UNI. Here's another thing. How do you go from shooting 91% free throws at UNI against UNI and then come around and against Purdue shoot 47% free throws?
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
They're free throws. 90% to 47%. That's a head scratcher.
Yes, that is very much.
I don't understand it. Well, one of the things that's keeping Iowa in games is their rebounding. And they out-rebounded Purdue 42-27 with 13 offensive rebounds last night. That's what helped catapult them beyond that 6-point lead, or 18-point lead went down to 6. Then they started, asserting themselves again. It seemed like they were kind of playing, like, you ever see a cat play with a mouse? That's kind of what I felt like Iowa was doing a little bit with Purdue last night. It didn't, maybe that's not how they were doing it, but that's what it kind of seemed like. Iowa would go out ahead, then they'd let them come back a little bit, and then Iowa would jump back out ahead, then they'd let them come back out a little bit. That's kind of what it reminded you of. There's a cat playing with a mouse before he eventually takes care of it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's frustrating. Like I said, I think that's going to be the demise of this season for them, is going to be the fact that it's the turnovers, that they can't value the ball, and they try to do things. They're trying to do the things that Caitlin did last year that they can't do. And they just need to play within themselves in those situations and say, you know what? I'm trying to throw the ball into the post and that post is doubled. I'm not going to throw the ball in there, because that's more than likely going to be a turnover, whether it goes out of bounds or it gets stolen.
Purdue.
How about if they're going to double on that, or if you're going to fake that and double on it, somebody else is open.
Yeah.
Find them. That's when the girls should be cutting someplace else.
Purdue's not a good team, and they will not finish in the top. I would say they probably won't even finish in the top 14. They'll be like Minnesota and Wisconsin and Purdue at the end, or towards maybe Washington. But but you can't turn the ball over 16 times against that team at home. Hey, I kind of
do that
give you a
against a
little
good
bit
team,
of
you're screwed.
what do you think UCLA and USC is going to do to them? At Iowa, because they both play at Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa plays on the road with Oregon and Washington, but play at home against USC and UCLA. And UCLA is not to be messed with. They are flat out fantastic. They are last year's, South Carolina. They are really good. They destroyed Nebraska yesterday. I don't know if you saw that or not. It was at UCLA, but it was like a 38-point win. It was bad.
Yeah.
So, the only saving grace is you get them at Iowa, but you got to take care of the ball. You cannot be giving them free possessions because you're just not taking care of the ball.
Yeah.
I've said this. I don't know how many times we've said this, that value of the possessions every time. And, I think they just kind of insist on throwing the ball away. I don't know why.
Yeah, they're trying to make the spectacular play instead of just making a play.
I realize you've got to take risk a little bit, but by the same token, man, some of those plays you could just see it and they're not there.
Yeah, I get it.
Don't force
and
it.
That's just the opposite mentality of the men's team, where they are less likely to do that, and they do value the ball.
Yeah, I mean,
so
Iowa turns the ball over 10 times in the men's side, and it's breaking news.
Yeah,
and they're really doing a good job of hanging on to the ball. But moving on, the Iowa plays again on Wednesday, New Year's Day. It is a Big Ten Plus game again. Unfortunately, it is at noon, right in the middle of all the football games that are going on. Mm-hmm. You're going to take a break and watch the Iowa women play at Penn State in Happy Valley. This is another team that I think is not great. I think Penn State, has in the past been good, but in the last 4 or 5 years has not been good. And I think they're on their way up, getting better, but I just don't think they're there yet. I think you're looking at a Penn State team that's going to end up in the bottom third of the conference. So Iowa should be able to take care of this, even if it's on the road. They have to take care of the ball better than they've been, or one of these teams that are not supposed to be good is going to sneak up and bite them. Now, 2 losses, and the 2 losses you've lost to are Tennessee and Michigan State. One a neutral court game and one an away game, and both are respectable teams. You lost to good teams. But if you're going to continue to throw the ball away and make bad turnovers, it's going to happen. You're going to lose
eventually. To bad teams if you do that.
It's going to happen. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, I was just looking at Penn State's last 5 games are 1-4.
Yeah,
they had a blowout loss, 36-point loss to Minnesota.
Oof.
So maybe 3-point loss to Kansas.
Penn State may not be the worst team.
3-point loss to Kansas, a 15-point loss at home against Indiana, a 5-point loss to St. John's, and a 17-point win against Providence. So, not like, certainly not cream of the crop in the women's side, but
you can't go in there and take them lightly either.
36-point loss at Minnesota is pretty telling.
That's kind of a head scratcher.
Yeah.
I don't think Minnesota's supposed to be very good either.
Their women's team will be a lot better than their men's team.
Well, I look for Minnesota to finish right there with Washington at the very back.
Well, they are 13-1.
Played no one.
They're 1-1 in the conference, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, let's let the heart of the conference season get going and see where they're at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of conference season, transition over to the men. They play tonight, as we said, against New Hampshire, final non-conference game. I think probably just starting just now.
Yeah.
Should be a pretty convincing win, I would think. First time Iowa's had every player available. Everybody's available tonight, which would be nice. I think this is a good opportunity to get like Traore in for about 10 to 12 minutes of the game, just to get him a sweat lathered up and then keep him out, because he just needs to get back in the flow of things before the Big Ten season starts here in a few days.
Yeah.
But it's a feel good game. It should be, a runaway type of situation where you can get everybody in, get some playing time, and get some guys some rest too. So
it should be similar to Carolina Upstate and
New Orleans.
New Orleans. It should be similar to those.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think New Hampshire's won 2 games this year, so yeah, they're not good.
Yeah, it's not going to help the old RPI, is it?
No, but you got to win. You got to win what's on your schedule. You can't worry about the RPI at this point.
When schedules are made up, years in advance, sometimes months and months in advance. You don't know what each team's going to have that's on your schedule.
Yep, absolutely. Well, what do you say we wrap it up and we can go watch that men's game here shortly?
Yeah.
We'll report on that and on the next podcast. And again, wrapping up football, a little bit a huge disappointment today because I think that was a very winnable game, a game that we kind of let slip through our fingers, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, agreed.
But that's what happens, and you got to flush it and get better, and you got to show you're going to get good players in. You're going to have to show that the offense is improving and willing to make changes. And until that happens, I don't know what to say. It could be in for more of the same. You just have to figure out what the guys on the team can do.
Yeah.
Say, well, we'll roll with what we got, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, with that, well, I don't have a question of the week this week. It's just kind of one of those deals where I couldn't think of anything that was really relevant. We're not in the really full swing of conference games of basketball, and football is just kind of wrapped up on a sour note. I just really didn't have anything.
Yeah. Having changed this from Sunday night to after the game, just having an instant reaction type of thing. We talked about a question of the week, and I'm with you. I just really couldn't come up with anything that was genuinely decent. So we just decided to roll with nothing.
Yep.
But
so I
hope everybody had a Merry Christmas, and I hope that the New Year is going to treat you great. And
be safe on New Year's night.
Be safe, yeah, absolutely. Night. In fact, I know I'm going to be safe because I'm not going out.
Yeah, we are going to some friends in Norwalk, but that's about it.
We're both coming off a little bit of a sickness, so we're just going to stay in and make a nice meal on New Year's Day and watch football and basketball and kind of do the same thing we did today.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, let's round it off. Final Go Hawks of the year, and we'll catch up with you next week. And yes, don't forget to catch us on Spotify, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, all the social medias. And don't forget, even though the promo is over, the 10% promo is over, we do still have a merch store that has popped up here and there throughout this podcast. Feel free to take a look there. And again, if there's something that you think that you would rather have that might make a good idea, shoot it over, and I'll see if I can mock something up and maybe get it into the store. Any support you guys can give us is great. Helps us keep this going, and upgrading some equipment here and there every once in a while if we need to. But other than that, it's whatever support you can show us, we greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Subscribe if you haven't. That helps the algorithm, gets us in front of more people. You've heard that old spiel before. Just, we appreciate you all watching, and hopefully you all had a good holiday and continued success and good fortunes in the next year.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, one final time this year. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.